How we doing there, boys and girls? Manthieus here, and welcome back to another video. Continuing on today with our little bit of an overview of the professions on the alpha, we have jewelcrafting to break down. Jewelcrafting is an absolute favourite of mine. I've had this profession on my main character for nearly as long as I can remember at this point. Usually because it's an absolute cash cow. It's usually a gold mine in most expansions, especially for those that are good at breaking down some of the maths and some of the numbers and figuring out the prospecting rates. I would absolutely love to talk in great detail today about how prospecting is going to work in Dragonflight, but truth be told, it's broken. It's absolutely busted right now. So much so that they've had to put all of the gems on a vendor for us to be able to test the profession out. Hopefully, I will have some time in the future to take a revisit of this and we can go through prospecting in a little bit more detail. So, I thought I'd cover that first because I know quite a lot of people's questions regarding jewelcrafting will be related to prospecting. Prospecting rates we do not fully understand, though one thing we do understand is just what we get via prospecting. And this brings me to the first real big topic of discussion for me when it comes to jewelcrafting is, oh my lord, there is a lot of materials. We are going to be interested, obviously, in the 3 different types of ore that are in Dragonflight. And of course, each type of ore has 3 different quality levels. We already believe that prospecting higher quality ores, not just higher rarities, will also have slightly different prospecting results, meaning there's potentially sort of 9 different prospecting ratios to work out eventually. But what do we get when we do prospecting? Well, we get a bunch of gems. We get the uncommon gems, the green gems, green in rarity, I should state. There's 5 different colours of gems, each once again with their own different qualities. And then we have the rare ones, 5 different colours of those as well, 3 different qualities. And of course, we have the diamonds. These are very similar to sort of meta gems almost. There's only 1 different type of diamond as it stands currently, but these are super duper rare to get, and even these have 3 different qualities. So you can see straight away, just gem-wise, rip bag space. That's all I can really go as far as to say, rip bag space. Even with the addition of a dedicated reagent bag, you are going to run out of space if you plan on having, a bunch of these kicking about in your bags. Truth be told, though, unless you are, truth be told, one of the big tricks to prospecting and making gold with jewelcrafting is anything that you're not crafting, you should probably be selling. That's the only way to guarantee sort of return on any investment buying the ore. So maybe you won't keep all of this in your bags, but there's a lot of gems. That's number 1 point with jewelcrafting. You also are getting finely ground gemstones, which is sort of an indication that maybe you will not necessarily always prospect and get a gem. Sometimes you may not get a gem, but instead you'll get finely ground gemstones. These go into a bunch of different crafts later on in the profession. We get fractured glass, and we also get crumbled stone by prospecting. So there's quite an array of things we're going to be looking for. And like I mentioned, the trick with jewelcrafting is always to do something with as much of it as possible. Even if that something is as little as just selling it on the auction house. Doing something with it is better than nothing. We're also going to be interested as a jewelcrafter in a bunch of the rousing and awakened elementals. But they're the main components for jewelcrafting for the most part. Let's take a little look then at what it is we're actually crafting. For the most part, it's exactly what you would expect. We do some prospecting, we get some gems, and then we start making some actual cut gems. We're taking some of the basic gems, usually in most cases, adding some sort of element to them. This is a significant difference to what we've frequently seen before. We're not reliant only on the raw uncut gem. We're going to need something that at least in my very rudimentary testing we did not get any of these elementals from prospecting, even when prospecting was sort of working. This may make it remarkably difficult to use everything you get from prospecting, because there's not even an easy get out jail free card of just crafting things and trying to sell the cuts, because you are going to then need to potentially even purchase yet more things to even make the cuts. So we'll see how that plays out. But there's some basic gems. Basic gems using some of the basic materials. There's some intermediate items with Jewelcrafting. We have to make shimmering clasps and frameless lenses. These are more frequently used for making rings and necklaces and the likes. And then we get the big gems. Now we got onto the good stuff. The regular gems, to which I would imagine most people are going to be hunting down. It might be easier in this scenario if I show all of the unlearned stuff, because there's basically 4 different categories of gems: air gems, earth gems, fire gems, and frost gems. This is where you are going to add yet more elemental items with the relative gem. And as you can see, you actually get a split amount of stats on this. This is going to mean that there's a lot of different possibilities and combinations you can have with Jewelcrafting. Critical strike and haste. You could have mastery and haste. You could have verse and haste. You could have stamina and haste, or you could have just double haste, double haste on there. So you can see each category is basically guaranteeing 1 secondary stat. So haste comes from air gems. You are getting mastery from earth gems. Fire gems provides you... Oh, hang on. Did I get that wrong? No, fire gems provides you your crit, and verse is going to come from the frost gems. So there's 4 different categories of gems you can spec into if you wish, providing you a good, I don't know, what is this, quick maths, a good 20 or so different cuts that you can potentially be crafting and throwing up on the auction house and selling to whoever needs them. And of course, in Dragonflight nature, these also have quality on them as well. Quality 1 through to quality 3. Quality 1 would give you 16 haste and 8 verse. Quality 2 would give you 18 haste and 10 verse. And if I remember correctly, it's 20 haste and 12 verse for the quality 3 version. So as you get better at being a jewel crafter, you'll be able to make gems of higher quality, which directly means more stats. More stats is likely to be more expensive. More stats is likely to be in more demand. There's going to be a lot of possibilities. If you think there's 20 different cuts here, all of them having 3 different qualities, that's potentially 60 different gems. Starts to become quite a lot, and this is just the basic gems. But more stuff to craft, more stuff to sell, more stuff to play with. I can't complain. I generally consider it better to have more stuff than less. This is why I've always been a fan of jewel crafting. There is then the Primalist gems. These are what we use the diamonds for. The diamonds are going to make your big gems. These are unique equipped to start off with, but they do provide primary stat. These are the only gems so far that provide any primary stat bonuses, and the one you choose is dependent really on what secondary stat you want attached to it as well. You've got crit, haste, verse, and of course mastery. But you can only equip one of these. This does also tend to leave me to believe that people are going to be more inclined to get a top quality one of these. A quality 2 or quality 3 is going to be really sought after. But you are going to be able to see these up on the auction house. You are potentially going to even be able to put work orders in for these, I can imagine. But you can't mass produce these. They've made it so that even jewel crafters are not going to be able to just craft hundreds of these, even if they unlock the pattern. They use this thing. It's called Artisan's Metal. If you've been keeping up with the professions in Dragonflight, you'll be aware of this. Artisan's Metal is a bind-on pickup reagent that is going to be somewhat limited. You are not going to get hundreds and thousands of these. At least we don't believe anyway. Blizzard has indicated this is going to be limited in somewhat shape or form, so you may have a limited supply of these and need to choose where you spend them. This isn't the only place you can spend your Artisan's Metal as well. There are some other areas within the profession where you can spend them, so it all comes down to this. I know it's a bit of a meme, but the meaningful choice of where you spend some of your materials. So that's gems, though. Gems, that's the regular thing you would expect from jewel crafting. There are a few other interesting things to point out, namely trinkets. Trinkets is not necessarily something that people tend to relate with jewel crafting all too much. Jewel crafters tend to stick to rings and necklaces for the most part, but there is some endgame trinkets that are going to be accessible by jewel crafters. These aren't, I don't believe these are actually learned through the profession. We might actually have to do something specific to go out and get these. But you can see these have also got a unique equipped dragon idols, meaning you can only equip one of these if you wish, even if you wanted to. But these have some nice synergy with the other gems in your gear, often providing you a bigger bonus the more gems you have. Nice little way there for Blizzard to really emphasize people to gem up their gear, likely to make their crafted trinket, if this is a direction they choose to go in, even more potent if they're fully gemmed out at the same time. Quite a cool little mechanic there. The basic jewelry we're going to be creating on a day-to-day basis. There's a couple of like low-level leveling rings and necklaces, and then there's some level 70 sort of your entry dungeon gear, I would imagine, but this is always very, very hot at the beginning of an expansion when everybody's furiously trying to gear up. And then there's, as you would expect, the rings and the necklaces, the regular level 70 endgame ones. These are similar in nature to what we've seen through other crafting professions, such as blacksmithing, tailoring, leatherworking. They all have this radiant tagline to it. It's a placeholder name for the gear right now, but we believe that we're only going to be able to equip 5 pieces of radiant gear. So people will probably want to still, gear up in the normal fashion through their Mythic Plus, their dungeons, their raids, and what have you. But any slot to where they're missing something is where the crafting profession is going to come in, and you're going to be able to make that crafted gear to fill the gaps, to smooth out the process of gearing your character up, we believe. Quite cool. What else have we got in terms of actual crafts? There's some pets. Nice to see some pets in here. Simply just colour variations of another whelpling pet. We have some extra little toys to play with. It's always nice to have extra little fun stuff. The rhinestone sunglasses have made an appearance. It's a cosmetic item. It's bind on pickup, another one of those things that you might get a work order to fulfill. And then there's some split lens specs as well. A couple of cosmetics there are nice to see. Your profession equipment. You may have noticed these slots up at the top here. These are for some profession tools that you're going to be able to equip in Dragonflight. These don't directly give you skill in most cases, but these are going to boost your, consider them crafting stats. You may have noticed that there's inspiration and resourcefulness over here. There is also multi-craft and crafting speed. There's 4 new crafting specific secondary stats that all will give you some perks and some bonuses whilst you're leveling up. This profession equipment, you can equip 3 pieces. And this is where there's a lot of trading between characters to be done. You can see we're responsible as jewel crafters, not just for our own profession tools. We do get the ability to make some of that, but we also provide scribes, enchanters, and who's this for? Scribes again. We provide some of the other professions with their equipment as well, so there's going to be some good trading going on between characters to max out your profession equipment and in turn your profession stats. Finally, with Jewelcrafting, it should be noted that there's an alternative way to get a supply of the rarer gems. If prospecting is not really your thing, there is these extravagant glasswares, as they're calling it. These are on a daily cooldown, I believe. If I do the Time Watches one now, I believe these are still, or at least on their first implementation. Yeah, we can see these are on a cooldown. There's now 2 days and 20 hours on a cooldown before I can make another one. But these just take some basic components that you'll get from doing prospecting of, any old stuff. If we are to open this, you can see we get ourselves a bunch of Nosderites, which is one of the rare gem. It's going to be a nice little way for you to focus a basic gem and turn it into higher quality. But of course, there's a limited amount that you can do this. Maybe a Jewelcrafting alt army? Who knows? There's lots of candidates this expansion for professions being doubled, tripled, quadrupled up due to cooldown. So we'll have to see how that plays out. The final thing I should probably talk about in terms of what we're actually crafting is there is this tiered medallion setting. A tiered medallion setting is a little on-use item that adds 1 socket to an endgame Dragonflight necklace. A necklace can have up to 3 sockets. The quality of this determines how many sockets it can add. This is a cool little way to just only, emphasize jewel crafting even more so. Being able to put 3 gem sockets on a neck piece is probably going to make the jewel crafting necks quite in demand, because you can attach, a crafted neck. You can keep the crafted neck up in your item level and keep it up with the tier of content that you're doing, the difficulty of the content you're doing. And then if you can get somebody, or even yourself, to be able to craft quality 3 versions of this, to be able to add 3 additional gems to a piece of gear, the min-maxers out there, the people who love to sim their characters and really push them to the limit, will appreciate the opportunity to attach more stuff to their gear. So this is quite cool to see. But I could talk about this side of things for a long, long time. Let's take a little bit of a look into the specializations a little bit more. When you hit 25 skill points, you automatically get given Jewel Kit Mastery, which I would love to call it a talent tree. It's not really a tree, is it, Blizzard? If I was to give any feedback on this, it's not really a tree. It's one node that just makes you better at being a jewel crafter. The irony is the way that this stands right now, this is actually one of the most valuable places for you to put your early jewel crafting knowledge. One thing that's going to really slow you down in your progression with any of the professions in Dragonflight is limited availability of this profession knowledge. We already have established that there'll be some daily quests to get this. There is some world drop items which can teach you some knowledge, and even scribes can on a weekly basis make you a little knowledge book to help you in your journeys. But for the most part, this is going to be quite restricted to how much of it you can get. This is one of the spots for jewel crafting that at the moment is a really, really good use for your points, because it gives you a flat rate skill to everything that you're crafting. Just ever so quickly, skill. You have your own personal skill. I have 51 skill from having 51 points in jewel crafting. I'm gaining an additional 45 skill due to where I've put some points in the spec tree so far. You often will gain spec points, direct skill points, the more knowledge you spend in these trees. So Jewel Kit Mastery is, just general becoming better at jewel crafting. Faceting is the route that you would want to take if you want to specialize in making gems. You can then become better at cuts, just cuts in general. You can make better quality gems, gaining additional skill when cutting gems. And then you can divert off into specializing in one direction or another. We mentioned earlier there's 4 different sort of specs of gems: air, earth, fire, and frost. You can choose which one you wish to specialize in, and it's upon specializing deep into one of these to where you learn at some point around this, here we go, you've actually got to max it out. When you max out your air node, for example, is where you will learn the illimited diamond cut with air, which will teach you the fierce illimited diamond. So if you want to be making those epic gems, those primary stat unique equip epic gems, you're going to have to specialize pretty deep to learn that talent, or that recipe, I should say. Your alternative route is going to be settings. Settings is where you're looking more at the jewelry side of things, your necklaces, your rings. For reference, a little early simulation. To spend 35 points in this tree is the bare minimum you need to do to unlock one of your endgame recipes. That one unlocked the ability for me to make the Elemental Lariat, which is an endgame upgradable, craftable, bind-on, pick-up, fancy, all singing, all dancing necklace. One that potentially could be added, made with an additional 3 sockets on it, which would be quite cool. So you're going to be striving, you're going to be trying to work out the absolute best place to spend your knowledge for the best effect. And we can already start to see that there are some paths that are more valuable than others. Realistically, because you don't unlock all of your professions until you hit skill 100, you're going to have access to 3 of them quite quickly, but you are going to have to choose which one can you do without for a while. Getting much past 50 skill points is going to require you to actually go and fulfill work orders and craft endgame items for people. So it's going to take most people on most realms a reasonable amount of time, I would imagine, to fulfill what could be 50, 60, 70 work orders to really max their skill in the profession. And it's not until you do get a skill of 100 until you unlock the 4th and final spec. But so general jewel crafting, cutting of gems, rings and necklaces come through the settings. You also have the idols, which is the trinkets that we discussed earlier. So this for me feels almost more powerful than jewel crafting. but I can also see why there might be some people out there very willing to run 2 Jewelcrafters so that they can get knowledge on both of those characters and have one specialized in settings, one specialized in faceting, because enterprising is just your optimization tree, but it's also quite an important tree because it holds the ticket to better prospecting results. Now, I'd love to go through prospecting in as much detail as possible, but we might have to wait till a beta before we can do that. But your enterprising tree is going to be a high tier pick, I would imagine, and then you are just going to choose. Do you want to go jewelry and trinkets, or do you want to go gems? Whichever route that you decide to take, you can spend some points in and specialize and become the best Jewelcrafter you can. But yeah, my final thoughts on Jewelcrafting is it looks pretty good. I'm really becoming quite a fan of these spec trees. I like the fact that you have to really start to think about, right, well, how many points do I have? Where's the optimal way to spend them? How do I push to gain an advantage over other crafters? Where can I specialize? All of this is what I really enjoy with the professions. And I think as long as prospecting turns out to be a nice little maths game, I will enjoy this profession quite a lot come Dragonflight. Might need to do something about bag space though, Blizzard. It's nice to have 1 extra bag for reagents, but boy oh boy are we going to be carrying around as a Jewelcrafter. My bags are nearly full and I haven't made anything yet, so let's talk about that, Blizzard, maybe. But generally, if I was to give a rating for Jewelcrafting, I've not done this for the other professions, but I love Jewelcrafting, so I'm slightly biased. I'd definitely say this is not only going to be a good profession for the purpose of making gold, because there's lots of options, but I also think it's going to be quite a fun little mini game to work your way through and work out where you're going to specialize and where you're going to put your points. So I'll leave it there for today, boys and girls. Let me know what your thoughts are on Jewelcrafting in the comment section down below. Make sure before you leave to like the video if you haven't already, subscribe if you're new around here, and I'll catch you all next time. Peace.